Iraq is a $250 billion economy. All this stuff that, you and I enjoy on a day-to-day basis, being in somewhere like New York, they're going to want all that. Companies will come in to fill that void. Unironically, places like that are some of the biggest opportunities on earth today.
Chris Maurice is the founder of Yellow Card.
It is a crypto exchange powering stablecoin payments for 30,000 businesses across Africa.
Why did you decide to focus on the African region?
One day I meet this Nigerian guy who's sending $200 to his family. The bank charged him $90 to send $200.
That's crazy.
I talked to the guy, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's free, it's instant, it's fun, all this great stuff. And went home and just started thinking, what would this guy's mom do with $200 in Bitcoin?
Today's guest is Chris Maurice, the co-founder and CEO of Yellow Card. Yellow Card is a platform that provides customers across Africa access to stablecoins like USDT, USDC, PYUSD, as well as tokens like Bitcoin and Ethereum directly through local currency payments. It was Africa's most funded crypto exchange with a total funding of 88 million and is now focusing on providing stablecoin payments on and off ramps for businesses. I'm excited to have Chris on the show today to talk about all of that, what's it like working in Africa, and more. Chris, welcome to the show.
Jackie, you didn't mention my biggest accomplishment, which is making it here to this show.
Well, we got to cut that and put that out as its own clip. We'll end the tape now. But you caught me off guard there. To start off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you even got into this space?
Yeah. So I got into the space back in 2013. I got into Bitcoin originally. My co-founder, Justin, is the guy who would walk around college parties evangelizing the gospel of Bitcoin.
Perfect.
He's like 6'7", very sweaty. You have 6 people at a college party, arms spread wide, just sermon on the mounting Bitcoin. And so by 2015, I was fully down the rabbit hole. Right. And thought this is the best thing ever. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Tried a number of things in the States. None of them worked. Most of them were hilarious. And
what'd you try?
Oh, how much time do you have?
I've got time.
That's okay. Well, in that case,
I've got a few minutes for this. Yeah.
So basically, the first thing that happened. So 2015 rolls around, right? Before this, I was selling Pokemon cards on the internet, which is
that's actually like a profitable business. I've heard.
Yeah, it's great. Also, I mean, not to derail the conversation into Pokemon too much, but what I should have done in hindsight is just hold all of it. I don't know if you followed that market at all, but at like 10x during COVID, because all like the TikTok influencers got into it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I was doing that before it was cool on TikTok. One day I was on eBay and I saw Bitcoin being sold on eBay for 150% markup. Bitcoin's like $100 at the time. People are selling it for like $250, $300. And
that's a steal now.
Yeah, and I sent it to, that'd be great. Yeah. I sent it to Justin, and I remember saying like, man, I know how to do eBay. You know how to do Bitcoin. Let's make some money.
A Bitcoin eBay marketplace.
Oh yeah. So we listed Bitcoin on eBay and we were selling it at 100% markup. Right. And the first week we did $40,000 in sales. Wow. At 100% margin.
Is that just because people didn't know where to buy it elsewhere? And they're like, yep, this looks accurate.
This was like the Wild West days, right? This is 2015. People were just figuring out what this stuff was. Coinbase was around, but it wasn't, the behemoth it is now. So we, $40,000 in the first week, right? 100% margin. So this is more money than I've ever seen in my life, right? Yeah. I'm going to call my mom, tell her I'm dropping out of school. I'm going to sell magic internet money for the rest of my life. And that's when I learned what a credit card chargeback is.
So I bet that hurt.
That was...
So what did that 40 turn into?
I may or may not owe certain payment processors money.
Oh my gosh.
That's don't tell them. So, right. But that's it hurt. It hurt. And so we ended up putting our collective brains together and deciding, we're still interested in the space, right? For, some combination of insanity and intuition. And decided, we're going to accept the only irreversible payment method known to man, which is cold, hard cash. And so we put out ads that, basically said, hey, we have, Bitcoin, come meet up with us and give us cash and we'll give you the Bitcoin.
Right.
And people started responding to these ads. And so we did the only thing that two reasonable college students in our position would do, which is every Wednesday at about 7 p.m., you could come to the Taco Bell on Gay Street in Auburn, Alabama. You could find Justin and I eating our Doritos Locos Taco 12-pack, and you could slap a couple $100 cash on the table and we would scan your QR code and give you Bitcoin.
And that's a true story.
I wish I was making it up.
Taco Bell was where you did your
too stupid
your
to
hustle.
make up.
It's too detailed. Yeah.
I will say though, Taco Bell is the perfect place for it, right? Because it's the perfect amount of apathy, right? Like this would have never worked at a Chick-fil-A. And so yeah, we did that for about 3 weeks, and we were like, oh man, this is working. So we start calling up friends at LSU, Yale, Georgia, Alabama, right? Anywhere that we knew somebody from high school. And within 2 more weeks, we had 7 Taco Bells on the Eastern United States, all within college campuses where you could walk in and buy Bitcoin.
And the Taco Bells were just thinking you were, avid eaters at their...
those guys don't care. That's my point. Those guys do not care, right? Yeah. Chick-fil-A, they'd be,
This episode is sponsored by Taco Bell. They'd be like calling us. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. Okay, fair. They didn't care. The workers did not care. Go on.
And so we did that for about 2.5 months. And then one day we were talking, we were like, man, we should do something less sketchy with our lives. And so that was when...
you were college students. At least you were making money. Yeah.
And so that was when Yellow Card was originally born. And the original idea that we had was we were going to put a gift card in CVS, Walmart, places like that. You'd walk in, buy this gift card, redeem it for Bitcoin. And we started building this out. And then one day I meet this Nigerian guy at a Wells Fargo in Auburn, Alabama, the capital of innovation, who's sending $200 to his family.
Yeah.
And the bank charged him $90 to send $200. And I thought,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost like
insane, right?
It's almost half the price of what he's sending.
That's nuts. And so, I talked to the guy, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's free, it's instant, it's fun, all this great stuff. And went home and just started thinking, what would this guy's mom do with $200 in Bitcoin?
Right.
Right.
Even today, people don't really spend Bitcoin like that.
Yeah. Everybody in the industry loves to talk about all the problems that we solve and, how we make money movement better and we make the world a better place and all that. But, here's a real person with a real problem. What is this actually going to do for her? And so I don't think I knew where Nigeria was on a map at the time. They don't teach you nearly as much about Africa as you might expect in the Louisiana education system, which I know that might be hard for you to hear.
That is hard to hear. Yes.
You're going to get some angry comments in the section now hearing that, but it is true. I became obsessed with this problem. I wanted to learn everything that I could. I started
you learned
doing
where
all this
Nigeria
research.
was. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I looked it up on a map.
Yep.
It's and so. I wanted to learn everything I could, right? I started doing all this research. I'm trying to understand, the country and the currency and the continent and the banking system. And while doing all this research, I realized if I want to understand Nigeria, I need to speak to somebody from there. Mm-hmm. And so I put out an ad online that said, looking to speak to Nigerian men.
I'm sure that went over well.
Yeah, in
hindsight, got a lot of replies.
I got a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
And so it went very well, actually. I mean, my KPI was, can I get Nigerian guys to talk to me?
And they did. So it was a great summer. What year was this?
This was 2017.
Okay.
And then I met this guy on the internet that would have been 2018. So
okay.
Basically I meet this Nigerian guy on the internet,
right?
Which is objectively the best place to meet Nigerian men.
I would agree.
And I start talking to him, and this is about the point in my life where I learned that Nigerians are the most convincing people on the face of this planet. Because within about a month and a half of meeting this Nigerian man on the internet, he convinced me to go get a passport and take the first international flight of my life. I had been on a plane 4 times in my life before starting the company.
To go meet him.
Yes. And I land in Lagos, Nigeria on a 6-day-old passport, no visa, no shots, and a one-way ticket that I spent all of our money on.
Was he real?
So
did he meet up with you?
Turns out he's real.
Okay.
It turns out the prince is real. Nobody ever takes the time to talk to the guy. So
different position. Yep.
Yeah. And so, Yeah, end up in Lagos, Nigeria, with the option of either build something that works or live in Nigeria for the rest of my life.
Because you only bought a one-way ticket.
I had no money left, so
Right. So you're in Nigeria, and that's where Yellow Card starts.
That's where we start.
Okay. Why not Orange Card if it was Bitcoin focused to begin with?
So it was Bitcoin focused to begin with, but I think there were a couple of things. Number one, we didn't want to peg ourselves to any one currency, especially back then. Right now, look, it's very obvious Bitcoin is, Bitcoin now, right? But I think, especially back then, we didn't want to peg ourselves to any one currency because we wanted the optionality of being able to do, Ethereum and obviously now stablecoins and all of that. And then also yellow is a color that's already associated with the idea of money movement. Right. You have Western Union, you have, especially in Africa, you have taxis, right? Where historically you just give money to a taxi driver, tell them to bring it out to like your mom in the village or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you also have the yellow fever card, if you're familiar with that. Which
I know yellow fever, but I don't know the card.
So it's like a vaccine that you need to travel around a lot of tropical countries, right? No, of course not. Don't tell my mom.
Yeah.
And
this episode's gonna get flagged with like anti-vaxxers.
This episode is sponsored by RFK. And so, for a lot of like countries in South America, especially in Africa, right, you need your yellow card to be able to, you can't go anywhere without your yellow card. So.
Right. Okay. Aside from the origin story, why did you decide to focus on the African region? Or is that really what drove it? And then you just saw a bigger need across more countries?
It was certainly going there, that's what drove it. Right. And I think I tell everybody on earth should be required to spend at least 1 week in Lagos, Nigeria.
Why is that?
It is because it's such an unexplainable city that everybody needs to experience. It's like New York, but 5 times as crowded and like chaotic, and just everything is everywhere, and people all over, and just business and life and everything happening. And it's one of those things that you can only really understand when you experience it, right? And it's not like anywhere else, even on the continent, right? If you've been to maybe India, I guess it's more similar from like a chaos standpoint to like India.
Okay.
But there's just so much going on, and there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
Because you have, some of the smartest people that I've ever worked with in my life, right? And you have a population that overall is extremely tech savvy, extremely intelligent. And then you have just a bunch of legacy systems that don't work, and a bunch of legacy infrastructure that doesn't work. And so there's just so much opportunity to improve that, and to improve just day-to-day life there. And yeah, I don't know. I found it so sort of awe-inspiring going there, especially, look, my entire worldview was shaped by the southeastern United States.
Yeah.
Going to Mississippi was like a big deal back in the day, right?
From Louisiana, right? Yeah.
And so it's just, it was, just such a unique experience. And you can't, if you have, look, some people, I think you're wired this way. I know I am. Some people are, wired to like just always be thinking about like problems and like things that you can solve and all that. And if you're wired like that and you go somewhere like this, there's just no better place, right? It's, everybody develops ADHD the moment they land. So that's.
Would you go to any other regions? Have you thought about that, or solely focus in Africa?
Yeah. So, we're doing quite a bit in other regions now. I think, look, what I tell everybody is I want to be in every country that my mom doesn't want me going to. And so.
I'm sure she loves that. Yeah.
That's, don't tell her.
She's like, when are you coming to the US? You're like, I'm leaving.
Sorry, Mom, I'm in Iraq. And so, I think the way that I see it is, the parts of the world that Americans are afraid of, unironically, are, some of the biggest opportunities on earth today, right? And obviously, I mean, look, we can talk all day about like the African continent and the opportunities in various parts of Africa, especially outside of, Nigeria, outside of South Africa, outside of the countries that, people generally think of. But I mean, look, outside of that, I mean, some of the biggest opportunities on this planet today are like the Middle East outside of GCC, right? Places like Iraq, Turkey, right? Iraq is a $250 billion economy coming out of devastation that nobody's talking about. Right? People there need services. They need all this stuff that, you and I enjoy on a day-to-day basis. Being in somewhere like New York, they're going to want all that in the next couple of years. And the companies will come in to fill that void. And there's just so much opportunity in places like that across Africa, across parts of South America, Southeast Asia.
When it comes to emerging economies and payments and businesses in these areas, like countries in Africa, like Nigeria, all the way to Iraq, like you just mentioned, what do you think people get wrong about it? Because you're talking about how much opportunity is there, but why isn't everyone just grasping at that economy and the opportunities that exist?
I think that there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear about these places. What's the last thing that you heard about Iraq before this conversation?
Probably the war.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Right? What's the last thing that you heard about Nigeria before this conversation? Probably about like some like prince emailing you or something,
Sure,
right?
sure,
like, and so there's so much. And look, I don't want to call it misinformation because I'm not going to sit here and say that, these countries are totally safe and like you should just go run around and, do whatever. But, there's so much sort of fear mongering around parts of the world that the West doesn't understand. Right. And, especially in the US, we live in a very American centric bubble. Right. I know I can't tell you more than 3 European leaders, right? Like, and that's Europe. Never mind
and we expect them
any
all
other
to speak
part of the
English,
world.
right?
Yeah, of course. Well, everybody should speak English, obviously. Look, I still speak 0.75 languages despite all the travel I've done. I'm still working on English.
Right.
Yeah, look, the language barrier is a huge part of it, though, right?
Yeah.
I think, even within Africa, when you look at some of the most underdeveloped, underinvested areas, it's the parts of the continent that don't speak English. It's like Francophone Africa. It's Lusophone Africa. It's parts of the continent where there's no English, right? Even, Nigeria, those guys are, there's a lot more money flowing in there than there is to, Senegal or somewhere like that, despite, the opportunity being, the same largely, right? And so I think that people just have a lot of preconceived notions about these countries. Right. And the thing is, and this is, this is part of what hinders innovation and part of what hinders good talent going to these places is it's not just an American issue, right? This extends across Europe, Asia, even within Africa. Right. I remember I was going to DR Congo for a couple of weeks and one of our Nigerian employees was like, why the hell would you go there? I would never go there in a million years. That place is so dangerous.
I wrote a paper on the Congo Republic when I was in elementary school.
Love that.
So I'm familiar.
Sounds like we got to go.
The paper said otherwise, but yes. So yes, they're telling you not to go.
Even like within the continent, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding of, other parts of the continent. Right. And so I think that, again, this is where so much of that opportunity comes from is when people don't understand a market, when the mass population doesn't understand what's actually going on and the types of challenges and innovations and opportunities in these parts of the world, that just makes it, all the more beneficial for the people that are actually willing to, take those risks and go in and operate there.
Right. And so for Yellow Card, it was a crypto exchange to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. And it has pivoted more recently to be B2B opposed to like B2C. What was kind of the decision behind that?
Yeah, recent is like 2.5, 3 years ago. But
oh, really? I thought it was the fall of 2024.
No, somebody just wrote about it then.
Oh, okay. Well, it was someone at TechCrunch, and I used to work at TechCrunch. That's
exactly.
Why. And I read that article.
They picked it up, and I was like, "That's weird. We did this a while ago."
Okay, so they got to change that article because I thought it was the fall. So it's been like 2.5.
It's been a little while now, but I think what really motivated that is, especially on the back of FTX and everything that was going on in the industry, we were still pretty consistently growing, right? And at this point, 99% of our volume was already stable coins at this point, right? You
On
mentioned
the exchange. So people were just buying stable coins. They weren't even buying like crypto assets.
No. So when
That's
we
so
launched, we were
interesting.
doing Bitcoin, right? Like you mentioned. We started offering other crypto assets. We offered Ethereum. We offered things like that. Nobody wanted it. It was just Bitcoin
That's
for
so
a while.
interesting. Yeah.
And then it was beginning of 2020 or beginning of 2021, we listed USDT. And day one, we went from 100% Bitcoin to like 70% Bitcoin, 30% USDT. Within 3 months, it was 99% USDT,
Wow.
1% Bitcoin. So, it was just a drastic shift towards stable coins. And that was when we started to realize like, oh man, there's something here, right?
Yeah.
And, that prompted us to just do more, customer discovery, right? Just talk to some of our largest customers. And, the big thing that we realized is a lot of the people that were moving, a lot of money and that were, transacting quite a bit were actually businesses, right? It was, I'm CFO of this company, but you guys don't have business accounts, or,
Right.
I manage treasury for, these guys or this or that. And so, we started just talking to them and trying to understand more and more. And it's, this is a great treasury management tool, right? And we were doing it through Bitcoin because it's a liquid asset, right? I can buy it, I can liquidate it for dollars pretty much anywhere. But with stablecoins, it's even better because it's just 1-to-1. I don't have to worry about the fluctuations. I don't have to figure out, do I need 0.000465 BTC? I don't have to do any of the math. It's just $1.
Right.
And so, that was about the time that we realized that, stablecoins are going to change the way that people interact with the US dollar worldwide, and especially in emerging markets where there's scarcity and where it can be difficult to access this stuff.
I've talked about this on the show before, but I was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And when I was out there, the need for cash and or US dollars was just like so insanely high. They don't want credit cards. Anything with a credit card will be marked up an insane amount. And you also can't really go to banks and take out money either.
Yes.
And it's just, it might sound so silly as like an American, but I've never experienced that before. And so like the need for stablecoins is very, very clear in emerging markets in a way that Americans are extremely privileged to not have to see it, until they
100%.
actually go to an economy where they see it firsthand.
100%, right?
Yeah.
I've always said that like this technology makes so much more sense in emerging markets, right? And
Right.
I don't know. This is something I'll say it. This always gets me in trouble with
Go ahead.
especially like crypto type audience. But I have sent money from the US to Europe before. It's not actually that bad.
Yeah.
Like it works kind of fine. And I've had people get riled up at me when I say that.
It's more
but
annoying, and the charges on it are like
It's
when we
not
do Venmo or
perfect.
something, it's like instant, right?
Yes.
But when I send money to like my cousins in London, it's not going to be that instant.
No.
Is, I think, the annoyance here.
No, but it's not
It's
that
still doable.
bad. You go on like TransferWise, you type in a few things, the money's there, it lands in their account same day. It's not that bad. And so, what I always sort of liken it to is you have, these super highways of money movement, right? These interstates that connect, the US and London and Europe and Hong Kong and parts of the world like that, right? And money flows freely. There's no traffic, right? There's street sweepers every night. The state is adequately funded, actually takes care of the roads. And then you have these dirt road offshoots through the Grand Canyon filled with potholes, and your car only gets 3 tires.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to get to Argentina. That's the only way to get to, to move back and forth between some of these emerging economies. And stablecoins are the first technology that come in and actually pave those roads, pave those on and off ramp connections to this, global highway of money movement. And, yes, will stablecoins make it more efficient eventually for you to move money to your cousins in London, which that's very nice that you're sending your cousins money. But
only when we like go out to dinner or something.
Will stablecoins eventually make that easier? Yes. Is that the most pressing need in financial services? No. I think that there are, just massive gaps in where money can and cannot move today that this technology solves immediately. And that's why those are the parts of the world where you're seeing so much adoption.
So how many businesses is Yellow Card working with today then?
So we work with about 30,000 businesses of all shapes and sizes. I mean, we work with everybody from large commercial banks to like a guy that sells shoes on the side of the road that he imports from China, and sort of everybody in between, right?
So for those individual business owners who are doing like I just sold you something like this, opposed to like the bigger ones, how do you engage with them? How do you find them?
So historically, most of our business development happened through, essentially word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
We work with a number of banks that, I firmly believe that like our product and stablecoins in general don't compete with local banks, right? And, we work with a number of local banks, right? And we work with a number of local banks that have customers that have these problems, and they'll send them to us. Right? Because this customer needs dollars. This customer needs to make this payment, needs to do this, needs to do that. And the bank can't facilitate it.
Yeah. So
they send them to us. We're able to help facilitate that, right? The bank gets their cut. Everybody's happy.
Right.
And so I think, historically, that's been a lot of it. Now we have a sales team. I had this crazy idea, Jackie. I had this crazy idea.
It's always nice when you can get a sales team.
I told my exec team, I was like, guys, if we have a sales team, maybe we'll do more sales. So
crazy idea. You read that in a book?
That's I must have heard it on the internet or something. That's
and so it helped.
That's been nice. That's been nice. Yeah, it turns out that when you have a sales team, it helps.
They do sales ideally,
but,
right? That's what they say.
But yes, historically, it's been a lot of word of mouth. It's been a lot of we work. Again, look, the countries that we work in and the communities that we work in, it's all trust based. Right. And, if I help you with your problem, then, you turn around, you tell somebody else. Right. And so, look, we did marketing, we did things like that. We would, make sure that we were set up at like, small business conferences and, other events. But that is, the best channel really is if you refer somebody, that person is it's a lot stickier of a customer. That they feel safer with the product, right? So they're more willing to, do larger volumes and move quickly. And yeah.
Was there ever hesitation from people that you've spoken to, either through word of mouth or ones that you were like reaching out to directly, especially from like the bigger clients?
The bigger clients, yes. Smaller clients, usually not.
They understood it.
Smaller clients, yeah, they understand it better.
So interesting, because you would think the inverse.
The smaller clients, it's number one, they understand it better. Number two, you have just less layers of decision making. Right. There's not, 7,000 people that you have to go through to get to an actual decision maker. And, look, when you're a small company, you need to solve your problems.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't have, look, if you are Coca-Cola and you have, several $1 million trapped somewhere, several $1 million is like a bad hour for Coca-Cola, right? So it just doesn't make a difference.
That's like a bad lifetime for a small business.
Right? Yeah, for a small business, that's like, oh, I don't get to eat today.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's a totally different scale. And so with small businesses, they need to solve the problem. Bigger companies, most of the hesitation historically has come around stablecoins, has come around like crypto in general. Right. I can't tell you how many conversations we've had with companies where they just, it's like, oh, yeah, like we have a huge issue with this. We can't manage our treasury at all. Right. It's like, well, great. Here's a solution. It's like, what do you mean stablecoins?
Yeah.
What do you mean blockchain? And
because of the negative connotation.
Yeah, there's a lot of negative connotation on the space. And, especially, look, because we work with a lot of companies outside of tech, right? We work with food manufacturers, right? We work with pharmaceutical importers, right? A great example, we work with a company that imports medicine from Europe and India, brings it in, distributes to a number of pharmacies locally, right? So, critical industries that otherwise don't have access to, facilitate these imports, right? They need dollars to be able to facilitate these imports for things like medicine, food, etc. And yeah, getting these guys over the hump of actually using even though they don't have to, I mean, they don't touch the stable coins, right? We do the full, stable
You
coin
do it for them.
sandwich that
Okay.
you hear so much about, I'm sure. We do all of that.
So stablecoin, local currency, stablecoin?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, well, local currency, stablecoin, local currency.
Okay.
Right. So like local currency and stablecoin.
So the inverse of what I just said.
The exact opposite.
But that's why
but
you're the
that's-
CEO of this company and I'm the host just asking you questions.
Hey, I get it, Jackie. Look, I
Yeah.
agree. Stablecoin sandwich, too many carbs, right? I don't need the bread. Just give me the stablecoin meat
Give me
in the
the
middle,
local
baby.
currency on
That's,
the outside. Yes.
Yeah. And so what you just described is like, you remember when KFC did that sandwich where the buns were 2 chicken patties?
I
That's-
don't, but
that's-
that's a very American thing that I would believe happened.
That's basically what you just described. But yes. Yeah, look, we take care of the whole end-to-end flow, but there's still like there historically has been a lot of hesitation around the space. And I think that it's only been really within the last 6 or so months that has changed. And the US
It's changed
election
for the better.
Yeah. The US election had a huge role to play in that. Right. I mean, I can tell you, I mean, the companies that, 2-3 years ago were telling me like, this is stupid. We're
Go
never going
kick
to use
rocks,
this.
yeah.
Whatever, calling me after the election and saying, what's all the, I keep hearing about stable coins, right? Like, now Trump's talking about it. What am I missing? So
Wow.
that had a pretty major impact.
Which companies?
That's a lot of great companies, a lot
Sure,
of fantastic
yeah.
companies,
Yeah.
all the best ones.
Now you sound like Trump. Africa is obviously a massive continent with a lot of different countries, cultures, nuances, etc. How do you kind of think about different strategies across the board? Because they're not all the same, obviously. And there's a bunch of different categories there. So when it comes to tapping into that market, do you do like a blanket kind of move or is it different per each country?
Oh, you have to go local. You have to go local, right? And I think there's, again, talking about like misconceptions of the continent and things
Right.
like that. Africa gets looked at as like a monolith, right?
Yeah.
Which is wild because nobody looks at like Europe as a monolith, right? And,
Yeah.
and Germany and Italy
Are very different.
are very different. Nigeria and Botswana have about as much in common as Germany and Italy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's, extremely different no matter where you go. I mean, you cross a border, the language changes, the people change, the culture changes, everything changes, right? And so, yeah, going local and working with people, you have to have really good people on the ground to be able to do
Right.
this, right? And you have to not just have good operators on the ground, but you have to have them in positions to make decisions and, trust their local expertise. And I think that that's something, again, that a lot of companies struggle with when trying to go global because it's tough, right? You want to centralize operations, you want to centralize decision making, but at the same time, you're trying to operate in countries that just don't have anything in common.
Right.
Right. And so it becomes impossible. Right. And so you need really good people on the ground wherever you want to go. And you need to empower them to be able to, make decisions up to, within a framework, obviously. But, you need to empower them to make decisions on, especially like cultural issues and doing business issues and things like that.
Do you spend a lot of time over there then?
Well, I am homeless, chronically, according to my
Okay.
mother.
You mean you're a nomad? I don't think there's a homeless CEO out there. That's why I'm gonna.
Nomadic implies that I have a plan.
Okay, so you don't have a plan.
No, I am just vibing at this point. That's
Just vibing across
I am
countries
just
and
vibing
cities?
across countries. So I had a place, and then I started doing the math. Never do the math.
Yeah,
Started doing the math, and it's like, wow, why am I paying for this
Trust
when
me.
I could just,
I get that. Yeah.
not.
but you gotta have a place to park your stuff.
Or you just have less stuff. I have like 4 shirts.
4 shirts.
Yeah. What do I need more than 4 shirts for? It's a good thing I'm
There's
only
7
here for
days
3
in the
days.
week.
So, well, it's yeah.
should
but
have
if
at
you
least
fly
7.
somewhere new, you can wear the same shirt again.
Because nobody saw you in the last shirt. Okay, fair enough. All right. Back to the topic at hand. When you think about payments today, cryptocurrency, stablecoins, cross-border payments, what do you think has been the most successful outcome, case study, use case that you've seen at Yellow Card?
I think the way that I mean the way that I see it, the most successful outcome of what we've done, and what I think that we provide a case study for more than anything, is that this technology does have very practical, very real world applications, which again is something that I think you hear, especially recently with, the Genius Act and all the other, like the Bitcoin stuff that, Trump was doing and all this, you hear from politicians that there's no utility, right? That there's no, like, what is, this stuff is just for money launderers and criminals and nerds and whatever. And I think that more than anything is what we set out to prove wrong and, have, right, to the extent that we have, is that this is a technology that is a critical piece of doing business in emerging markets. It's a critical piece of international payments in countries that are not properly connected, because the banking system and the correspondent bank, network was not set up for the developing world. Right, it was set up for the U.S. It was set up for Europe. Yeah. It was set up for these parts of the world, and so I think that more than anything is what our technology and what we do has shown, is that no, this is something that a remittance company can use to significantly improve their rates, right, and get more money home to that mom, or get more money home to, your cousin or, whoever else that you're supporting in other countries. This is something that, companies in food and pharmaceuticals are using to import critical goods when they can't access all of the dollars that they need in the time that they need to. Right. This is something, even just more from like a quality of life standpoint outside of like, critical industries. When you look at like Africa, for example, and this is true for parts of South America as well, 80+% of consumer goods are imported. Everything that, you or I, all of this stuff, right, has to be imported in these countries, right? There's just not a lot of local industry for consumer goods, right? Most of the local industry is focused on raw materials. It's focused on oil and mining and things like that. And so, even just from a quality of life standpoint, right, this is helping companies to be able to facilitate imports, to bring in the things that, you and I would consider commonplace and sort of expect, and make that available widely across these countries. So it's, I think it's, more than anything, that's what we've been able to show, is that this technology is so much more than a speculative asset, right? And yeah, I mean, look, again, we do stable coins. They're not going to $1.50 anytime soon, no matter how bullish I am.
That would be nice, but no, that's not the point of stable coins. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so, I think that's the most important thing. And I think that is also what, we've tried to communicate to a number of politicians in the US. We've tried to communicate that to, politicians all over the world, right? And the US seems to be the only place where they don't, not all of them, a lot of them understand this stuff, but some of them still don't quite understand that. But
yeah. When you think about the future for Yellow Card, as well as like stable coins and cross-border payments, what do you think is like the biggest value proposition to come that hasn't been tapped into yet?
The way that I see it, as you look out, 5 or so years, right? What our technology is already doing in practice in a couple of cases, and then what we're positioning to be able to do as you look out 5 years is not replace local banks, not replace local payments, anything like that, right? I tell everybody it'll be a cold day in hell before you walk into a coffee shop in Nairobi and you're paying for your latte in USDT, right? It's just like, that's just not a use case that, I subscribe to, right?
Okay.
Anytime in pretty much every country around the world, right? Ironically, the US was one of the last to figure this out.
Okay.
Pretty much every country around the world, local payments are largely solved for, right? Local payments are quite easy in most African countries and a lot of South America. Asia obviously is like the king of this, right? In terms of, with China and places like that. But local payments are quite simple. International payments are the big problem child, right? And we don't compete with local banks, right? Local banks were not able to facilitate these transactions yesterday. So this is not business that we're taking away from them. I think what we compete against and, where we see ourselves positioning as we look out, 5 or so years is to replace correspondent banking and replace correspondent banking networks, especially in, emerging markets. I think that, something that people don't realize is just how convoluted the correspondent banking system gets. And they wonder why, remittance and things like that are so expensive. It's not because, Western Union is charging outrageous. I hear all the time, Western Union is charging outrageous. That's not true at all, right? It's just extremely expensive to work within this system. Yeah. In a country like Togo, for example, they're not, most banks there are not connected to JP Morgan or to Citibank. They're connected through Ghanaian banks. Huh. So money that you're moving from Togo has to go from Togo to Ghana and then Ghana to New York. Right. And sometimes those Ghanaian banks are not connected directly. Right. So then you get another hop. And so there's just so many issues like that come up. And so, that's where we really see the value proposition looking out 5 years is banks utilizing our technology, utilizing our rails to settle these payments with that stablecoin backbone.
Have these banks expressed interest recently?
So we work with a number of local banks already, right? So that's already something that we're doing. I think, as we look out 5 years, we want to be helping to facilitate this for even like Citibank, for JP Morgan, for banks like this, right? These large banks are not going to roll over and die, right? No. Right? Like these guys are more innovative than I think they usually get credit for. You have to be to survive for as long as they have, right? And so, JP Morgan, Citibank, banks like that are massive in this correspondent network. Sure, look, the reality is that this technology will reduce their fees. It will, cut into margins on this product. But that is, it's going to become the expectation from consumers and from businesses that, it shouldn't cost me $90 to send money internationally.
Yeah. Last two things, Chris. I'm glad you said the $90 thing. Do you still talk to that guy? The one who sent $200? No?
No.
I wonder if he's looked you up.
Unfortunately not. God, I hope so.
Maybe he'll hear this interview.
Tell him I said sup.
So you just met him at the bank that day and that was it?
That was it.
Wow.
We kept no touch. Yeah. So that's...
Well, he was the impetus almost of this whole story. Yeah. Last thing, can you leave us with a piece of advice? Something that you've carried with you throughout your time?
I think the one thing that I always try to live by and that I think is always important is like get started. I know so many people that they'll tell me, I want to start a company, but I need to like go work and get experience and do this. It's like, dog, you're not going to learn anything working at, Deloitte for 4 years.
How did I know you were going to say like a consultancy company? Yeah.
Like that's not like, I'm sorry, brother. That's not going to teach you how to start a company or how to run a business. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, and look, you see this all the time in like the creative space, right? I've seen like people that have wanted to do podcasts. It's like, oh, I want to get like 10 episodes ready and then I'll put it. It's like, just start. Put it out there.
Yeah.
Like whatever you're doing, put it out there. I cannot tell you how many mistakes we've made. I cannot tell you like how many things we screwed up, especially in the beginning. How many times, how many iterations of what we do have changed and the way that we do things and this and that and the model and all of that. But you have to learn as you go. And the only actual way to learn is by doing it. You're not going to learn it in a corporate job. You're not going to learn it, by, gatekeeping, your creativity or, your music or whatever it is from the world. You have to just put it out there. You have to get like the harsh feedback. You have to let people in the YouTube comments be really mean to you. And then, you will come out better on the other side. Yeah. So just get started.
Just get started. I love it. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course.